Did you know that BDSM and kink are healthy outlets for aggression, imagination, and attention? Hi, and welcome to the Partition, home of kinky wellness. My name is Dana Slosser, and I'm a sexual wellness coach that dives deep into all things kinky. I'm here to show how BDSM and kink deserves a rightful spot within the sexual wellness conversation. So, let's talk about it. Hello, and welcome back to the Partition podcast with Katrina Fairhurst. How's everyone doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing great. So on this podcast today, we're going to be talking about hookup culture, and we'll be starting off with a TED Talk that we both watched called Stripping Down the Hookup Culture, the Need for Emotional Visibility. So I actually wanted to start with that quote that we need to be emotional, visible to each other, because I actually think that's a big part of BDSM, and what gets that working is, in order for that to work, you have to be emotionally visible to someone. You're willingly opening. You don't have to date this person, but they're still seeing you on this emotional side that other people won't see you on. So I thought that was really sweet. But what did you like? We'll start with you. What did you like about that video?
So I've got like all my little notes here. I do agree with a lot of what she said, like that idea of the role of apps, this need of like the way dating has changed, I think was a really interesting one.
Yeah.
And the role of FOMO, so like just dating for the sake of going on a date, is such a big thing. And I was like, I really like the amount of times I've done it myself, all my friends have.
Well, that's why I agree. The FOMO, I agree. I actually wrote that point down too, because it's just such a simple thing of like, if your friend jumps off a bridge, will you jump off a bridge? And it's kind of like that. Yeah. In the dating sense, it's if you're not dating, I know that we've touched base on this before, but yeah, if you're not hooking up with someone, there's something wrong with you, not necessarily that you want your space or anything like that, or you like hanging out by yourself, or if you don't want to, people are just like in that revolving door of not being alone.
Oh, like for me, it's the weirdest one for me is when I'm talking to my friends and they're not interested, but they're just going on the date for the sake of saying they've gone on a date.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going on a date tonight. Okay, are you excited? Oh, I'm not really feeling it, but we'll see. And I'm like, but that's not like, surely if you're not interested from the get-go, you're not going to be interested anyway. And like, I really did like that story that she tells in it of like her friend who went on a date and like he wasn't her type and it was this and it was that. And then when they got to know each other, actually after a while, she found that she really enjoyed his company and stuff like that. And I do appreciate that as a mindset. I think that is a really good one. I think one of the problems with dating apps is like, you know, it's very hard to, it's not hard, it's very easy even to date the people that you're only attracted to. You know, like you can literally say, I want to date somebody who has this interest, looks like this, identifies like this, etc., etc., and you can find that. But I don't know if I agree with her point that dating apps have made us jaded. The people I've dated, in fact, I would say are completely opposite. Like I've told you about it. I've gone on dates with people who are very intense to the point where they're like the opposite of jaded, the opposite of, oh, I don't care about dating, blah, blah. They're almost like, no, I need this relationship. It's going to work. We had the same likes on like the app, so we have to get along together. And I'm like,
no, I agree with that. I also on top of that, I didn't like how she said that hookup culture is hurting everyone.
Yes.
So I get it. Like, yes, I agree that Tinder is teaching people to look at looks and we're not giving a second chance. I agree that there are some problems with the apps that are contributing to hookup culture. But honestly, hookup culture is where I got into like BDSM basics. Yeah. That's where I go is Tinder, is Bumble. Like that's where I go to use it. I think that I got good out of it. That was a positive experience for me. I'm not saying every time I went on these dating apps was a positive experience, but I can say that I do have positive experiences through that app as well. That's where I would go to do things through BDSM. If I didn't have hookup culture or those apps that like contribute to this, then that outlet would not be there for me. And it would just be one more roadblock into finding people that I was looking for. So
Yeah.
I didn't agree with that at all. I thought that that was really harsh. So I have mixed reviews on that.
No, I agree. I think the thing that I really didn't agree, like I really, really didn't agree with, was when she said, oh, you know, because of the apps, it's like people are less likely, like the stories are going to change. Like, oh, you know, you're going to ask, like in the future, they're going to ask the grandparents how they got together. And it was a one night stand on Tinder, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, don't sit here and act like the apps are the only reason that happens. I am literally here today because my parents saw each other in a bar and fucked.
I'm glad they did.
Of course. My mum refers to my dad, my biological father, as a one night stand who couldn't take a hint.
That's Joe.
Yes, they met. She liked the way he looked. She brought him home. They had sex. And then when she kicked him out the next day, she went, see you later. And he turned up the next day, because my dad is a romantic at heart and cannot pick up on the fact that, bless his heart, like my dad loves dating apps because my dad wants to fall in love so badly. And I feel for him so much. But no, I think hookup culture does get a bad rap. And I'm saying this as somebody who doesn't partake in hookup culture. Like because I've got vaginismus, obviously, it's very hard to have hookups. Like I'm not going to be able to go out and have a one night stand, because the actual, you know, and I know that there are people who have vaginismus who actually say hookup culture and one night stands actually help them with theirs, because there's not as much anxiety.
Oh, okay.
Surrounding it. So, you know, on that side, that's a perfect reason. If going out and having a one night stand where you don't need an emotional connection helps you to have sex, then I think you should definitely partake in that. For me, on the opposite side, I get more anxiety about that, so it just makes mine worse. But I think hookup culture gets a bad rap, especially when we focus always on the apps. But we don't talk about the fact that there are apps that get made now that are literally focused on moving away from like the Tinder swipe. And
but there's also like even regardless of the apps, people are still going to go to bars and hook up.
Yeah.
Like we can put some effort on there. Like I know that, like I actually brought up some facts because part of this, it said this was created in 2019. And she said that 49 million people are on the app and it's a $1.8 billion industry. But I looked it up for the numbers for last year, and Match Group made almost $3 billion. Over 300 million people are using the dating apps worldwide, and with 20 million people paying for premium features. And Tinder was the most downloaded app in 2021, followed by Bumble, like for dating. So it's just one of those things, like it's a choice as well if you want to go on it or not. I think that there should be accountability. Like if you go on an app and you don't like what's happening over and over and over again with these hookup cultures, it's your choice to stop.
Exactly. Like I think when there's a massive focus on, oh, it's the apps that have done this, it's the apps that have done it, I'm like, yeah, but are people communicating? For me, everything boils down to communication. Hookup culture, you need to be honest with people about what you want and what you don't want. And like,
to add to this point, before we get a little bit too far away, for instance, I didn't agree that she said, like, I don't believe that it's ruining people all the time. I believe that some people, like, it can be devastating to your self-esteem if dates just keep failing through. I understand that. But while I was looking for this, there was articles upon articles of ways to stop regretting your hookups, or 5 ways to stop regretting your hookup anxiety. And I'm going to put this in, but some of them were just like, debate your feelings, find the lesson in it, let yourself off the hook. And it's one of those things, like, if you don't like what you're doing over and over and over again, keep yourself on the hook. Sorry. Like just a little bit, sit there for a minute, really figure out you don't like this feeling, and then go back to where that was. And it's just to say, oh, like, you're off the hook. Like, who cares? Just try again. Just try again. Just try again. It's like, no.
Yeah, if you are getting anxiety about hooking up with people, maybe the problem isn't the hookups. Maybe the problem is you.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I agree with it. Debate, like that whole idea, debate yourself to that. No, just be honest about what you want and your expectations. Like, I am aware, I've used apps, I use apps now. It's very hard as a very femme presenting lesbian woman that isn't really a big part of the LGBT community. It's really hard for me to find people. So it's easier for me to go on the apps.
Mm-hmm.
But where I have an issue is like people who are complaining about, oh, it's the bad dates, it's this, it's that. I'm like, well, were you honest about what you wanted? Like, I am very honest with people from the get-go. I don't want to do hookups. I'm not looking for a one-night stand. I want a relationship. So if I'm going on a date with you, if I'm going out of my way to go on a date with you, I'm thinking about not necessarily the future. I'm not on a first date going, oh my God, we're going to get married. No, that's too intense. But I am going, if I'm willing to make time and space for you, that's because I want it to lead somewhere. I don't want it to just be a one night stand. But so many people go into it going, I want a relationship, but actually the majority of people on this app have said they don't know what they want, or they just want a hookup. So I've gone along with this and then my feelings have gotten hurt. And I'm like, well, maybe you should put your foot down and tell people.
Like, for the instance, it's like, maybe if we taught how to get people, like, I guess women, like, I think I use the app because I originally, it was like, yeah, I wanted just to hook up and like have sex. Like, I don't think that that's a crime to want to do that. And also, I don't think that you should feel like that's a crime. If someone's not taking care of their mental health in other ways, like, we can't just be blaming this on the, like, on apps all the time. Like, humans are so complex. I feel people get situated on one thing. They're like, oh, because they use an app, that's why they're like emotionally this and that. And it's like, oh my God. But I so like see this destructive side, and like people can go on there and there is a lot of vulnerability there with people with low self-esteem. But again, that comes on to the person's individual, like, of saying like, I can't let people treat me like this. Like, I was in a bad relationship because I found a bad one through Tinder. Like, I ended up dating one of the people that I was hooking up with, and it turned out to be one of the worst relationships I've ever in. But I'm not going to sit here and blame the app. I'm going to sit here and blame myself for letting that person treat me like that. Like, that was an accountability that I had to take.
Yeah.
So when I hear people say it's the app's fault, it's just, who the fuck is using the app? Like, it's a person.
Yeah, you're not talking to an algorithm. Like, no, I agree. And I think also, because she made a really interesting point, and this leads into the question I wanted to ask you actually, where she was saying about how dating has changed. So like the way we date has changed from, we no longer go out for dinner, but things such as like going over the person's date, Netflix and chill as a date. And this is where my question comes in. At what point do you view that as in within the date? Because you've got like, obviously now, because people love, for all people who don't like labels, there's so many fucking labels about what part of dating you're at.
Yes.
Obviously we've got seeing each other, dating, and then like maybe pre-relationship and then relationship. So
okay, call me old school before we get into all of this. Call me a little old school. Fuck all of those stages. If you are talking to someone, the very first thing should be, I am talking to you, but I am not limiting myself to just talking to you. If they want you exclusively, you fucking say it. But as far as I'm concerned, this cat and mouse of like, oh, we went on 5 dates, so this equals this, 7 dates equals this. Screw that. Like, after like my partner and I was the first hangout that I was with him that I was like, wow, this guy is fucking cooler than I thought. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just like no, seriously, like, because we work together. So I should do a background on this. Yes, we work together. So I was nervous because I had dated someone I'd worked with before, and I was like, I don't want to do this again. But So I went in with, he was leaving the job. And so I started hanging out with him after he was deciding to move back to Ontario. So yeah, but it's funny because it was so honest too,
Yeah.
because even at one point in our relationship, we were long distance in the sense of like, we're so early. Like, do we even continue this? Like, we don't really
Yeah.
know each other. Like, there's a lot on the line. We don't come from the same culture. There was a lot going on. And then we decided, you know what, we'll just try this. But even before that, though, it was like, I told him, if we are not dating, like, I'm not going to be your friend. Like, I'm not here to hang out or like to
Yeah.
continue these random friendships. Like, I'm a very one-minded type of person. Like, I very much am on a mission with my business and people I hang out with. And I also believe like if they're supposed to be there, they'll stay. And if they're not,
Yeah.
then, you know, they'll move on. But he was like, can we be friends after if we don't date? And I was like, no, I'm just not for that. I'm just not
So,
down. I'm not one of those
oh,
people.
salt and burn
And
policy. Salt and burn policy. If we're over, whether we were dating or we were in a committed relationship, if there is nothing there after that, I'm like, we're not friends. I don't do that
no.
fucking friends afterwards bullshit. No.
Well, the thing is, like, for instance, like, I do have one of my best friends. We are still together, like, together in the sense that we're still friends. Like, he never left my life, but we, you know, we were married and then we got a divorce and we realized that wasn't for us. But with him, that was like a growing opportunity, but we remained mature as much as we could throughout that whole process
Yeah.
because we realized at the beginning of that divorce, like we didn't want to be together. And we were very honest with each other at the beginning. We didn't harbor these thoughts to ourselves. And then a week later, or a month later, a year later, then we bring up these feelings to someone. That's bullshit. This idea that we don't say things right off the bat. Why?
Yeah.
You're wasting your time. You're wasting the other person's time. And it kind of rolls into what she said with fear of what is it? Fear of authenticity. I don't
Yeah.
agree with that because we choose what we post. So if they don't want
Yeah.
to show other sides of them, they don't have to. We're so
No.
diverse, and to put our entire selves on an app is you can't do it
It's
for starters.
insane.
So I
In
didn't
fact,
agree with that.
no, I think, in fact, me and you have actively complained about people who do post every little thing from the good
Yes.
to bad to the ugly online, whether it's in our own conversations or on here. Like we've both, I don't find that authentic. If I'm sad, and I've got a lot of reasons to be sad this year, I am not going to sit here and post a video of me crying. That to me isn't authentic. That to me is acting.
Yes.
Like you're doing it for a reason, or you're showing it for a reason. I'm not saying you haven't got issues. I'm not saying your pain isn't real, but the fact that you will not do it on your own, that is a problem to me. But back to my question though about it is the reason I had it is I had this conversation with friends in the past, and I've had this conversation with like people I know. And I'm like, I don't think that people are jaded. I don't think hookup culture is a bad thing. What I think is people are doing relationship shit before the relationship.
Yes.
So this whole idea of like, oh, we're not going out for a date. We're not going out. I'm going around this person, whether you're having sex or not, whether you're hooking up or not. In fact, if you're having sex with a person, this makes way more sense to me than when people go on a date, don't have sex with somebody, but that date was just hanging out at that person's house. And I'm like,
that's not a date.
That's not a date. That's relationship shit. That is
you're in their home. You're in their home. Yeah, I actually had this big conversation about like this might be a little off of like hookup culture, but the idea of just inviting strangers into your home, I'm not for that. I don't get it. I used to like, I look back and I'm sitting there being like, you know what? There's a lot of times that I'm like, I'm lucky. Like I'm lucky. As much as everything has been said and done, like there's definitely some worse cases that I could have been in because I don't know half the people that was in my house.
Yeah.
So now I take it super seriously. And yeah, and this idea of like inviting people over from online into your home. And as much as people don't ask to be assaulted, but when you hear those random cases where again, they brought a stranger into their home, it's like, okay, there has to be some wall here where you don't just bring random people you don't know into your home. Like, as much as that might sound harsh to some, that is the reality of this. You don't know people online. So yes, I do believe that the first time you meet someone should definitely be
Yeah.
outside, not
Yeah.
in your home. What is so
When,
wrong or crazy about that notion? Nothing.
yeah.
Nothing.
Like not even the first day, like up until you guys make the conscious decision that, like you said, I am not talking to somebody else. We are doing like, because I was having this, like, where do you do the distinction? And my friend was like, seeing each other for her was she was going around this guy's house and they were like watching movies together and having dinner together. But dating for her was like, we go out for dinner. And I was like, no, seeing each other is we're going out, we're hanging out. And then dating is where we've maybe not said, oh, I'm only talking to you, but whether we've had that conversation with each other or not, but where I've said to myself, I like this person, I'm not going to talk to anybody else. That's where and that can happen after the second date or the seventh date.
Yeah.
That's the distinction between seeing each other and dating for me. But once like that, only once I have said, I trust this person enough and I know this person enough that I want to get to know them more intimately. And I want to be just me and them, if that's what we're doing. Like, I want to relate, like when I've gone, I want a relationship with this person, or actually I like this person a lot, that I want to see specifically where this goes. That to me is when I would be like, okay, babe, don't worry, come over mine for dinner.
Yeah.
I know you, I've met you multiple occasions. Like, it's a really interesting one that I was listening to her talk about, like that authenticity and like people being sad about hookups. And I realized that maybe it isn't because of hookup culture. Maybe it is because people have almost inversed the roles and like the way that we date in a way that means you're doing relationship shit for people before you're in a committed relationship. I'm like, if you literally said to me, I invited a guy or a girl round, and we had, like, you know, we went for coffee once and then we came over, they watched a movie, and then we had really hot dirty sex and then they left afterwards, I'd be like, yeah, that's fine, that's a hookup, that's fine. That is, you literally did what a hookup culture is. But if you then said to me, oh yeah, I was seeing this person and I was cooking them dinner every other night and they were coming around mine and we were just like hanging out and we were like cuddling up in bed and having these really intimate moments. And then they said that they wouldn't have a relationship with me. I'm like, but why are you giving them intimacy?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and even to the hookup culture, I think that BDSM, people who actively partake in ethical BDSM, I feel like they're the more hookup culture that you would want to be towards, because you know you're going in just for sex on these levels. And the idea with hookup culture too, it's they don't even know what they want. So then they're running around the blind, leading the blind of like, what are we doing? And deep down inside, they all want some sort of affection. And again, if we just taught people women specifically, how to actually just give themselves orgasms properly, we wouldn't have this problem, I think, as nearly as bad, at least with females, I guess.
No, I agree with you, because I think like I've written quite a few articles about it, about like the benefits of masturbation and solo play. And one of the things that comes up in every bit of research that I've read about it, every article that I've read to help me write my own, is it teaches you to set boundaries, and it teaches you, like, you learn what you like and therefore you can communicate. And like, that's, I think maybe because the reason I've been single for so long, and this is the reason, is you know, and I masturbate a lot. You know, I've got a high sex drive. I just
same, yeah, like same. I swear, yeah, it's like every day. Like I have to, like, it's just, yeah, I love it.
Exactly. But it's having this conversation where I was like, but I find it so much easier than a lot of my friends who have been in and out of relationships to actually sit down and say to people in the middle of a day what I will and won't put up with. I'm like, you know, I've been on a date where somebody tried to make me call them daddy. And I was like, no.
Not my cup of tea.
Not my cup of tea. Also, not my cup of tea when we haven't fucked and we're in the middle of a restaurant.
Oh yeah, this is the first date. You don't know these people. That's what I mean.
Second
I guess
date.
I'm looking at that's a normal conversation
That's
in
a
a
normal
BDSM first hookup.
conversation.
Yeah, it's like
But,
check. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, I'd have been up for it in the bedroom, but this is the second day. And also being able to sit down with people and be like, I'm interested in this, but I'm not interested. I'm not, and saying to people, I am not interested in a one night stand. I don't want it. If that is something that if that is all that you want, thank you for this evening. We're not going any further. And it's not me pointing my finger and saying to that person, you're a bad person. Because I think when people do date me, I think people mistake my bluntness as accusations and like me shaming people, and it's going, no, I'm not shaming you. I'm just, that's your boundary and that's my boundary. And I feel like if those boundaries don't align, there's nothing there. We're not going to be in the same headspace. So we're not going to give the same energy. But
well, I think with hookup culture, like, well, even with the same energy, I feel like it's also, they're not being honest that they're looking for a hookup.
Yes.
Like we can use the word hookup culture, hook up this, hook up that, but I rarely come across somebody who's ever said, I just want to fuck you one time in a message. No one's saying that. Even though they should. If this is what you're really looking for, if that's what you're looking for, just the one night stand, fucking say it.
And I don't know about you, I think there is also with like hookup culture, like you said, people don't use it the right way and the time isn't the right way. And you see it in the fact that so many people get conned into having these like pseudo relationships with no actual conversation on whether they're in a relationship or not. Like I've had the conversation with my friends about like, how do you define a fuck buddy? And I was like, a fuck buddy doesn't, like, that is somebody that I literally only want for sex. I've done it in the past. I'm like, or it's a friend that we have sat down and said, we care about each other, but there's nothing beyond sex. Like, I don't want to date. I care about you, but I do not want to date you. And I think a relationship would be awful. But actually our body chemistry works really well together. So why not have sex? That I think is complete. That is for me a fuck buddy. Hookup is somebody, like you said, whether it's a one night stand or a couple of night stands, you go literally, I don't give a fuck about your life, I just want to fuck. Or from a BDSM perspective, obviously there's way more conversation and a little bit more in depth and just like a regular, let's just have nasty sex. I think people mistake pseudo very intense, oh, we're not official, but therefore we're still going to do everything like a relationship and then chicken out.
Mind games.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not hookup. You are not empowered. You are not hooking up with people, and you are not in control of that situation, because somebody always gets their feelings hurt, and
that's where those articles came in. Just I'm telling you, like, article after article, how to combat your hookup anxiety, your sadness. It just seems so sad. I didn't realize that the hookup culture stats and things like that was just that sad, because I don't view it on that. I think that if you can do it with maturity and authenticity and with your morals and your boundaries ready to go, like even in the thing in the video, she said the word caspering, and I had never heard that term before, so I had to Google it. And by definition, it says it's a friendly alternative to ghosting. Instead of ignoring someone, you're honest about how you feel and you let them down gently before disappearing from their lives. Is that not the responsible thing to do? Is that just not the responsible thing to do? Like, there's no word for caspering. Why don't you just be an honest person and just say that? Like, we don't need a fucking word for that. That's just called responsibility and maturity. Hey man, thank you so much. Like, didn't work out. Let's move on. I don't fucking get how we've got a word for that like that.
I love it. That's me. That is literally what I do, because everyone told me ghosting was bad. But oh my God, I know she won't mind this, but can I just say my favorite thing of like when people were saying about hookup culture and like the impact COVID had, and everybody was like, when I was complaining to a lot of my friends about, why are you just inviting people over for food? Like, why are you inviting people over to your space? And they were like, well, it's COVID, nothing was open. So and I'm like, that's why you had these really strange intense relationships. My best mate, and she listens to this, and every time I give her a little shout out, I get a happy text from her. So I'm saying the story, how her and her current partner John got together. Stitches. They used to, like, because she got a dog, Valerie got a dog, and she basically did this thing where they met, where they live, it's very green, so they used to just meet up and go for a walk, and everyone was like, yeah, but didn't you used to just have no, not until we said we were dating, not until we said we were like anywhere near a relationship did I even think of inviting him back. We met up and we went for a walk. And do you know what? The amount of times I had to make her text me that she arrived, and then text me halfway through the date, and then text me at the end of the date. And her boyfriend was like, oh, why do you keep texting your friend? Oh, because she thought I was going to die. It's a really interesting one. Well, I was like, yeah, don't blame COVID and apps on hookup culture. Blame your lack of boundaries on what you are willing to accept. Because she made it work. She's in a very committed relationship. She's very happy. And she was like, yeah, I didn't fall into that trap of very intense, very fast. We got to know each other, and we found alternative ways to do that in a healthy way that didn't involve either of our spaces being walked on, so that they didn't have any of that anxiety. I had the anxiety though, because, you know, my best mate was going on a walk with a random person in the woods. That's horror movie material, but
this,
you know,
next Netflix special or something like that. But it is true. And you know what? This is a great story to wrap this up with, but I guess that's our take on hookup culture and, you know, Caspering and everything else in between. But do you have any final thoughts, I guess? Anything you want to leave with?
I think I've said all I need to say, but I'm just not over Caspering.
I know. Oh my gosh. I still think it's just a responsible thing to do, but over to our friendly ghost here. Anyways, for all you listeners, what do you think about the term casting, and what do you think about hookup culture and all that jazz? Let us know in the comments and follow us on Instagram. So see you later, Katrina.
See you soon. Bye.
Well, that's it for us. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and let us know what you think. You can find me at thepartition.life and Katrina at _satisfiedcat. Thanks for listening. Tune in next time. And as always, stay kinky.